Circus Circus, 3,767 rooms. Biggest hotel in Nevada. North Strip location. Generates $127 million EBITDA annually. Actually profitable. Phil Ruffin put it up for sale in 2019. Asking price over $1 billion. 6 years later, still hasn't sold. Multiple price cuts. Discussions with potential buyers. Nothing. Here's the crazy part. Circus Circus makes money. It's profitable. It's massive. It's on the Strip. So why won't anyone buy it? This is the story of why Circus Circus, despite being profitable, is completely unsalvageable, and why Phil Ruffin is stuck with a property nobody wants. Circus Circus generated $127 million in EBITDA in 2023. That's actual profit, real money. 3,767 rooms across 3 towers makes it the biggest hotel in Nevada. More rooms than Bellagio, Wynn, Cosmopolitan combined. The property sits on 68 acres of prime Las Vegas Strip real estate. North Strip, but still valuable land. Phil Ruffin bought it from MGM in 2019 for $825 million. He's owned it for 6 years. Those numbers suggest this should be an easy sale. Profitable property, huge room count, Strip location, reasonable asking price compared to other Strip properties. Circus Circus opened October 18, 1968. Jay Sarno, the same developer who later built Caesar's Palace, designed it as the world's largest permanent circus. The concept was revolutionary for its time. Family-friendly Vegas. Bring your kids, watch circus acts, play carnival games, affordable rooms and food. In the 1970s and 80s, that model worked. Vegas was positioning itself as a family destination. Circus Circus was ahead of the curve. The property was so successful that it spawned an entire casino company. Circus Circus Enterprises eventually owned Excalibur, Luxor, and Mandalay Bay. The company became Mandalay Resort Group, which MGM bought in 2005 for $7.9 billion. So Circus Circus has legitimate history. It wasn't always a punchline. It was once the model for successful Vegas development. The problem isn't the numbers on paper. The problem is what you're actually buying. When someone buys Circus Circus, they're not buying a functional casino resort. They're buying a 57-year-old property that looks exactly like it did when it opened in 1968. Low ceilings throughout, pink and orange carpet that hasn't been replaced in decades, cramped, dark casino floor, narrow hallways, tiny rooms. The circus theme means carnival midway games on the mezzanine level, circus acts performing above the casino floor, and a big top aesthetic that screams 1960s family entertainment. That positioning is the core problem. Circus Circus is a children's casino in a market that's moved completely away from family entertainment. Vegas tried the family-friendly angle in the 1990s. MGM Grand had a theme park. Excalibur had a medieval village. Luxor had rides and attractions. It failed. Families don't spend money in casinos. Kids can't gamble. Parents with kids don't drink, party, or gamble as much as adults-only tourists. By the 2000s, Vegas pivoted hard to adults only. Nightclubs, pool parties, celebrity chefs, expensive shows, ultra-luxury. Every Strip property, except Circus Circus, followed that trend. Circus Circus stayed frozen in 1968 because changing would require demolishing everything that makes it Circus Circus. Now it's a relic. The last family casino on a Strip that doesn't want families anymore. The Circus Circus name carries decades of reputation as the budget property, the place you stay when you can't afford anywhere else, the last resort. Vegas locals won't go there. Tourists view it as a joke. Reviews mention dirt, grime, maintenance issues, outdated everything. Circus Circus has a reputation as the Strip's biggest embarrassment. Any buyer inherits that brand damage. You can't just rename it and move on. The stigma sticks to the property itself. Let's say someone buys Circus Circus tomorrow for Ruffin's asking price. What happens next? Complete gut renovation. Every room, every hallway, every public space. Rip out the pink carpet, raise the ceilings where possible, modernize everything. Estimated cost, $500 million to $1 billion minimum for a full renovation that brings it to modern strip standards. But here's the problem. You can't just close Circus Circus for 2 years to renovate. 3,767 rooms offline means losing massive revenue during construction. Let's do the math. If average daily rate is $100 per room, which is probably high for Circus Circus, and occupancy is 75%, that's $282,000 per day in room revenue alone. Close it for 2 years? That's $205 million in lost room revenue. Add lost casino revenue, food and beverage, everything else, and you're looking at $400 million plus in lost revenue during renovation. So you renovate in phases. That means some guests staying in renovated towers while others are in old towers. Guest confusion, operational nightmare, years of construction disruption. Even after spending $1 billion renovating, you still have structural problems you can't fix without demolition. The ceilings are low throughout the property, in the casino, in the hallways, in the rooms. You can't raise them without massive structural work that's essentially rebuilding from the foundation up. The layout is cramped and inefficient. The property was designed in an era before modern resort planning. Traffic flow is bad. Sight lines are poor. The circus acts perform above the casino, which means the ceiling structure is non-standard and limits renovation options. The towers themselves are outdated design. Small rooms, narrow hallways, limited elevator capacity. You can't fix these issues without tearing down and rebuilding. The property was built for a different era of Vegas. It's physically designed for 1960s family entertainment. You can't easily convert that to 2020's luxury without starting over. Look at what happened when properties tried major renovations without demolition. The link was the Imperial Palace. Caesars spent $223 million renovating it. It still feels cheap and outdated because the bones of the building are from 1979. Flamingo has been renovated multiple times. It still has structural and layout issues from its 1946 origins that no amount of money can fully fix. Park MGM was Monte Carlo. They spent $450 million on renovation and rebranding. It's better, but it's still clearly an older property with limitations. None of those properties had the structural challenges Circus Circus has. The low ceilings alone are a deal breaker. You either accept them or you demolish and rebuild. There's no middle ground. Even after renovation, it's still Circus Circus. The name still carries all that baggage. You could rebrand completely, but then you're spending another $1 billion renovating a property you just bought for $1 billion, and you're destroying whatever brand equity Circus Circus has with budget travelers. At that point, you're $2 billion into a property that doesn't have an obvious market positioning. Too expensive for budget travelers after renovation. Not prestigious enough for luxury travelers even after renovation, because everyone remembers it as Circus Circus. You're stuck in the middle with no clear customer base. The only solution is complete demolition and rebuild with a new brand. But then why buy Circus Circus at all? You're just buying the land. Circus Circus sits at the far north end of the Strip. It's surrounded by Resorts World and Fontainebleau, both struggling. It's near the Strat, also struggling. Center Strip is where tourists want to be. Bellagio, Cosmopolitan, Caesars Palace, area. That's the action. North Strip means tourists need rideshare or long walks to get anywhere. In Vegas heat, that's a deal breaker for many visitors. The few North Strip properties that succeed, like Wynn, succeed because they're destination resorts with reputations that justify the location. Circus Circus has no such reputation. From Circus Circus to Bellagio, 1.3 miles. That's a 25 to 30-minute walk in Vegas heat. Not happening. From Circus Circus to Caesars Palace, 1.1 miles. Still too far to walk comfortably. Tourists staying at Circus Circus need rideshare to get to Center Strip attractions. That adds cost and friction to every trip. After a few days of $10 to $15 Uber rides, tourists realize they should have just stayed center strip, compared to staying at Cosmopolitan or Bellagio. Walk out the door and you're in the middle of everything. That convenience is worth paying extra. Properties succeed partly based on what's around them. Bellagio benefits from being near Cosmopolitan, Aria, Caesars, Paris. High-quality neighbors create a high-quality district. Circus Circus is near Resorts World, failing. Fontainebleau, failing. The Strat, barely surviving. That's not a neighborhood that screams quality or success. When tourists look at a map, they see Circus Circus surrounded by properties they've heard are struggling. That doesn't inspire confidence. The North Strip has a reputation problem. It's where struggling properties go to die. Circus Circus is the king of that struggling neighborhood. Why would a tourist stay at renovated Circus Circus when they could stay at Venetian, Wynn, Resorts World, Fontainebleau for similar prices? All those properties are newer, nicer, better located, or have better brands. Circus Circus can't compete on luxury even after renovation. Why would a budget traveler stay at renovated Circus Circus when they could stay at unchanged Circus Circus for cheaper? You price yourself out of your own market. Why would a family stay at renovated Circus Circus when downtown properties like Golden Nugget or Fremont offer better value and more authentic Vegas? The property has no competitive advantage, not luxury enough for high-end travelers, not cheap enough for budget travelers after renovation, not well located for convenience, not unique enough for destination appeal. There's no customer segment where Circus Circus is the best choice. The only real value is the land. 68 acres on the Strip is genuinely valuable. Demolish everything. Build a new resort from scratch. That's the play that makes sense. But demolition costs are massive. Estimate $50 to $100 million just to demolish 3,767 room towers safely. Environmental remediation, debris removal, time. Then you're building a brand new resort in a terrible location on the North Strip. That's a $4 to $5 billion project minimum based on recent construction costs. Resorts World cost $4.3 billion and it's struggling. Fontainebleau cost $3.7 billion and it's losing money. Why would anyone build another mega resort on the North Strip after those examples? And the market for new mega resorts is dead. We saw that with Resorts World and Fontainebleau. Both opened within the last few years. Both struggling. Nobody wants to build another Resorts World or Fontainebleau. So the land isn't as valuable as it seems because nobody's building there. MGM sold it to Phil Ruffin in 2019 for $825 million. They wanted out. They got out. MGM already has too many Strip properties. Park MGM, New York, Excalibur, Luxor, Mandalay Bay, Bellagio operations, Cosmopolitan operations, Aria operations. They're trying to reduce their portfolio, not expand it. MGM sold Mirage for $1.075 billion to Hard Rock. They're looking to sell more properties, not buy them. MGM knows exactly what Circus Circus is worth because they owned it for years. They sold it at $825 million. That tells you their valuation. MGM got out at the right time. They're not coming back. Caesars has $12.3 billion in debt. They're struggling with the properties they already own. Flamingo, Harrah's, The Link, Paris, Planet Hollywood, Caesars Palace, Horseshoe. They can't afford another acquisition. They're barely servicing existing debt. The Link is one of their weakest properties. They don't need more North Strip problems. If Caesars had cash for acquisitions, which they don't, they'd buy something that strengthens their portfolio, not another budget property in a bad location. Maybe. But what's the play? Buy it, renovate it, flip it? To who? We just established nobody wants it. If you spend $1 billion buying it and $1 billion renovating it, you need to sell it for $2.5 billion plus to make a return. Who's paying $2.5 billion for renovated Circus Circus? Buy it. operate it, milk it for cash flow. It's already doing that under Ruffin. 127 million EBITDA annually. Why pay $1 billion for a business model that's already working for the current owner? You could argue a PE firm could operate it better than Ruffin. Maybe. But Ruffin is an experienced casino operator. He owns Treasure Island successfully. He knows what he's doing. Private equity firms need an exit strategy. Buy it, hold it for 5 to 7 years, flip it for a profit. But there's no obvious buyer 5 years from now either. The property will be even older. The North Strip will still be struggling. Without an exit, private equity won't touch it. Possibly, a company from Macau or Singapore looking for U.S. exposure might see value. Genting bought the Stardust site and built Resorts World. That didn't work out well for them. Resorts World is currently failing with collapsing EBITDA. Would another Asian operator make the same mistake? Maybe if they think they can succeed where Genting failed. But they'd do due diligence and realize everything we just discussed. The brand damage, the renovation costs, the location curse, the lack of competitive advantage. International operators aren't stupid. They know the Vegas market. They have consultants. They'd pass. The only way an international operator buys Circus Circus is if they get a massive discount. Maybe $500 million. At that price, the risk-reward works. But Ruffin won't sell at $500 million because he paid $825 million. This is the only realistic buyer. Someone with a specific vision for transforming the property into something completely different. Maybe someone who wants to build the first major sports complex on the Strip. Demolish Circus Circus, build a stadium and entertainment district. Maybe someone who sees value in budget family entertainment and thinks they can make the Circus Circus model work again with modernization. Maybe someone who wants to build affordable housing or mixed-use development on 68 acres of strip land. But that person would negotiate hard on price because they know Ruffin is stuck. Why pay asking price when you have all the leverage? And we haven't seen that buyer emerge in 6 years. Either they don't exist or they're not interested at current pricing. Phil Ruffin also owns Treasure Island, which he bought in 2009 for $748 million from MGM. Treasure Island is also North Strip, also aging, also struggling somewhat, but Treasure Island has advantages Circus Circus doesn't. Better location right next to Wynn and the Venetian. Adult-oriented branding. Mystere by Cirque du Soleil as an anchor attraction. More upscale positioning. Ruffin has successfully operated Treasure Island for 16 years. It's profitable. He knows how to run a North Strip property. So why is Circus Circus for sale but not Treasure Island? Because even Ruffin knows Circus Circus is a problem property. He's willing to own and operate Treasure Island indefinitely. He wants out of Circus Circus. That should tell potential buyers everything they need to know. Phil Ruffin is a billionaire. Forbes estimates his net worth at $3.1 billion as of 2024. He owns Treasure Island. He has other businesses, including Ruffin Building Systems, a modular home manufacturer. He owns Wichita Greyhound Park in Kansas. Circus Circus generates $127 million annually in EBITDA. That's pure profit after operating expenses. Why would he panic sell for less than he thinks it's worth? He can afford to wait. Maybe the market improves. Maybe Vegas has another boom. Maybe someone desperate appears. There's no financial pressure forcing a sale. No debt coming due. No urgent need for cash. Ruffin bought it for $825 million in 2019. He's reportedly spent money on some maintenance and minor improvements, though nothing major. Let's say he's into it for $850 million total. Selling for $600 million means losing $250 million. That's not just financial loss. That's ego damage for a billionaire developer who built his reputation on smart real estate deals. Ruffin made his fortune buying properties at good prices and operating them profitably. Selling Circus Circus at a loss would damage that reputation. Better to keep operating it profitably and wait for the right buyer then take a loss publicly. Industry analysts estimate Circus Circus is worth $1.5 to $3 billion maximum based on land value, revenue, and EBITDA. But Ruffin knows anything below $1 billion looks bad because he paid $825 million. That sets a psychological floor on pricing. He probably won't accept less than $1 billion because that signals he made a mistake buying it. So he's stuck asking for a price that's higher than buyers want to pay, but lower than he wants to accept. This is classic negotiation deadlock. Seller's minimum price exceeds buyer's maximum price. No deal gets done. Here's Ruffin's math. If he holds Circus Circus for 10 more years, collecting $127 million annually in EBITDA, that's $1.27 billion in cash flow. Subtract operating expenses, taxes, and capital expenditures, maybe 40%, and he's netting $760 million over 10 years. If he sells today for $800 million, he gets $800 million now. If he holds for 10 years, he gets $760 million in cash flow, plus whatever it sells for in 10 years, maybe $600 million in 10 years. That's $1.36 billion total versus $800 million today. From a pure financial perspective, holding makes sense unless he gets offered significantly more than current market value. So why would he sell at $1 billion when holding longer generates more value? Phil Ruffin is 89 years old. He was born March 12, 1935. Eventually, his estate will inherit Circus Circus. His heirs might have different priorities. They might not want to operate a casino. They might sell at a price Ruffin wouldn't accept. They might be more motivated to liquidate. This is honestly the most likely path to a sale. Wait for generational turnover. Ruffin's children, if they inherit, might immediately sell for $700 million or $800 million just to get it off their hands. They didn't buy it. They have no ego invested. Circus Circus is for sale. Has been for 6 years. Generates $127 million annually, 3,767 rooms, 68 acres of strip land, actually profitable. Nobody wants it. Why? Because you're not buying a functional property. You're buying a 57-year-old building with brand damage, structural limitations, terrible location, and no clear path to competitiveness. Any buyer needs to spend $500 million to $1 billion renovating it. After renovation, it still has low ceilings, cramped layout, and the Circus Circus name carrying decades of baggage as the budget property. The only play that makes sense is demolition and rebuild, but nobody's building new mega resorts on the North Strip after watching Resorts World and Fontainebleau struggle, and demolition plus rebuild costs $4 to $5 billion total for a property in a terrible location. MGM sold it and won't buy it back. Caesars can't afford it with $12.3 billion in debt. Private equity needs an exit strategy that doesn't exist. International operators would do due diligence and pass. So Circus Circus sits. For sale, but not selling. Profitable, but unsalvageable. The biggest hotel in Nevada that nobody wants to own. Phil Ruffin can afford to wait. He's 89 years old and collects $127 million a year. He paid $825 million for it. He won't sell below $1 billion because that's admitting he overpaid. Buyers think it's worth $700 million to maybe $1 billion max. Ruffin wants $1 billion minimum. That gap prevents any deal. Eventually it'll sell. Probably when Ruffin dies and his estate liquidates. Maybe when Vegas booms and values spike. Maybe when someone gets desperate enough to overpay. But right now, it's the most profitable property nobody wants. The lesson for Vegas. Sometimes properties reach a point where they can't be fixed without demolition. And sometimes the land isn't valuable enough to justify demolition. That's where Circus Circus is. It works as is because costs are low and it targets budget travelers. It doesn't work for anyone trying to create modern Vegas luxury. It's trapped between two worlds. Too profitable to demolish, too outdated to renovate. Circus Circus is a time capsule. A living museum of 1968 Vegas. And nobody knows what to do with it, except keep collecting money until something changes. That's the story of why the biggest hotel in Nevada has been for sale for 6 years with no buyer in sight. Have you stayed at Circus Circus? Would you buy it if you could? Let me know in the comments. If you want more Vegas deep dives into properties that should work but don't, subscribe to Vegas Vault. Hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.